On your mark, get set, go! The Clash Royale League is now. In Europe, a battle between two teams on the wrong side of the playoff bubble. 7th ranked Fnatic against the surprising Team Liquid stuck in 6th. Who will seize this all-important victory?
Fnatic coming off a major win against SK Gaming, due in no small part to that man right there, Asuchini, sweeping all 3 players, using that Sparky deck. Who thinks comfort decks can't work here at CRL? And on the other side, on a team full of superstars, it's the smallest name making the biggest impact as of late. Buffmac really changing 2v2 for this squad, helping them move one step closer to the playoffs. Hello and welcome to Week 6 of Clash Royale League. I'm Rich Slayton. Joining me is Andrew Guy. As we move into the second half of our European region, the standings are, of course, very close.
Yes, absolutely. Here we have these two teams in 6th and 7th place. Team Liquid really coming off of that big win over Queso, trying to get in those top 4 spots, making it to playoff, and Fnatic trying to stay out of the bottom 2. They've got a lot of work to do here in Royale Rumble Week.
Only 2 games separating the 7th and 2nd team here in the European region. And yes, it is the Royale Rumble, a week, 5 days of matches, 20 matches over 5 days. And this is very important for our playoffs because let's take a look at our actual format. So in the playoffs, the 4th team and the 3rd team will meet in the first round. The winner of that faces the 2nd place team, and the winner of that faces the 1st place team. So where you actually end up in the standings end of the season is so critical for your chances for success. And of course, later today, we have 2 teams searching for that spot. It's going to be G2 Esports up against the #1 team, Queso. But right now, as Andrew said earlier, we have 2 teams that today is a big, big step towards making maybe that 4th or 5th spot. It's Team Liquid versus Fnatic.
Yeah, you look at Team Liquid here, and they seem to have found their golden 4. We got Surgical Goblin, Diego B, Azilius, and Buffmac just dethroning, well, not dethroning, but giving an L to Team Queso in their last match. And then, of course, we got Lemon Tea, Asuchini, and Dion. There's just 3 of them, but my, are they powerful.
This is a squad that's been through so much, really battling back from tough early losses, and they've made so many big changes, gotten more focus, and one of those players who's really changed his game in the last few weeks is standing by with Christy St. John, as she has Dion.
Thanks, guys. Dion, so the last time you faced off against Team Liquid, it was the first match of the season. It didn't go as well. Now the first match of Super Week. So tell me, how has your strategy changed?
Well, in the first week, we didn't really come prepared. We really found our way. Like last week, we beat SK, and we swept them in the King of the Hill. So we hope to do this again.
Last time you had an amazing sweep against SK. Now I have to ask, you had a great new deck with an amazing 2v2 strategy. Do you have something like that against Team Liquid? Do you know what they're going to throw?
Yeah, we just prepared our bench really well on what they play. So yeah, we just prepared our deck for that. So we think it's going to work.
Great preparation, definitely important in the league. Thanks so much for talking to me. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Christy. These teams figuring out how might they make some changes for their second meeting, their second matchup. Of course, coaches, such a huge part of that. Some words of encouragement coming right now inside the war rooms.
All right, guys. Today we have a rematch versus Liquid. For the 2v2, we're throwing Lemon Tea and Asuchini. I want you guys to focus on communication and synergizing your card rotations. For the 1v1, we have Dion. He's going up against Surgical. We've banned Miner. They've banned Balloon. Dion, I just want you to stay relaxed and try and control the tempo of the match. You know, we prepared a while for this, so I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, we can try to play 2v2 in Spanish, I think. That can be a good thing.
Yeah, we've been practicing our Spanish a bit, so it might be better to communicate
sure.
in Espanol.
All right, guys. Last week, we beat the undefeated team in our region. We showed everyone that we deserve to be at the top of the standings. So let's make the end of Queso's win streak ours, and let's make Super Week our week. Let's get it, boys. C'est soixante match on 3. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. C'est soixante match.
My dad used to say, teamwork makes the dream work. Well, the 2v2 battle is the ultimate test of teamwork. So, which team will make their dream work. Liquid and Fnatic have at it!
Work, 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 work. That's all these players are putting in as the first match we ever had in CRL gets run back here one more time.
Yeah, and so much has changed since week 1. For Fnatic, we have Asuchini and Lemon Tea coming out. Now, these guys have found moderate success, but Asuchini riding high after his dominant performance in King of the Hill. And, of course, Diego B with Buffmac, who seems to be their the missing piece in their 2v2 woes. And it seems like the communication issues have finally been curbed, and now moving into the second half of the season, both of these teams fighting for that playoff spot.
Take a look at our card bans here. No big surprises, no shocks. Poison and Tornado off for all of our potential 3 games here in 2v2.
Yeah, and I believe in the very first game, first match, first set ever was when these two met each other, and Tornado was not banned. So maybe, obviously, we've seen so much of it and how effective it is here in 2v2 at CRL. It's week 6 now. It makes so much sense to take it off the table.
So we'll see what happens. How does the rematch play out? 2v2 on its way. Team Liquid top of your screen, Fnatic at the bottom. You know, Andrew, these two teams met the first ever set of CRL, and that 2v2 set kind of set some of the meta right out the gate. You had a Golem beatdown deck, we had a beatdown Graveyard Freeze, so it really kind of told us what 2v2 would look like for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a dominant performance by Team Liquid, and at the time, Team Liquid was one of those super teams, if you will, the New York Yankees of CRL, and it seemed like if they did it and it worked perfectly, then why would you ever do something else? It seems like some of the best players in the world had figured out the secret, but my
Take a look at that left-hand tower, Andrew.
Coming out with something new that we haven't seen from them in a while, and now they're just battling for that 3 crown, and Fnatic doesn't even realize what's happened. They're focusing on this Princess Tower on the top right. They're about to lose the 3 crown.
Yeah, both teams going with similar ideas, but one extra wrinkle coming down for Team Liquid. That's the clone spell.
Wow, and Fnatic now just needs to kind of lick their wounds going into game number 2 and figure out what happened, how did it happen so quickly, and where did we go wrong?
Well, you know, when you have when you have that much coming down the pipes and then it gets cloned,
yes,
there can be a lot of DPS very quickly, and we've seen that now. Reaching the halfway point of regulation time, both towers for Fnatic down under 1,000, so you know, it's going to be very difficult to play defense and try to mount any sort of offensive comeback.
Yeah, and this 2v2 set is so important for that, you know, that energy going into the rest of the match. And as you talked about it, looking at the playoff picture now, you see how important it is to be in those top 2 positions and how much you gain from that.
And here we go. This is going to be, yeah, that's the GG very quickly. So the British Bomber and the young man from Plant City, Florida, Diego B and Buffmac, putting it together. Their team on the bench kind of laughing, like almost as if they can't believe that worked, maybe.
Yeah, and they're, you know, you see them giving us a little nod over here to the commentators being like, yeah, we just did that. That's something we had planned, and it worked out perfectly. As you see this push with the miner tanking for all of those small little troops, and the Lava Hounds still tanking almost at full health. So much. And then you see this flying machine. If you keep watching this replay, it actually does an incredible amount of work on that Princess Tower.
Well, you've talked a lot about how much you really love the skeleton barrel. You even mentioned it in your in that the video that came out for Clash Royale Social.
Right.
And here you go. We're seeing how valuable it can be, especially when paired with so many other swarm troops.
Yeah, I misspoke. It was the bats that did the damage there. But yeah, you see that skeleton barrel, and when that pops with the clone, with the lava pups, it's just so much to deal with. And I believe Fnatic thought they'd probably kind of dealt with it with the snowball, but it wasn't adequately dealt with. There was still like 50 troops on the board. Really tough for them.
Game number 1 in the books for Team Liquid. Game number 2 on its way. Will they pull the same kind of trick or go more traditional this time?
Let's go, boys.
You know, Andrew, one of the interesting things about a deck like that, when you see it really work, is how it almost cascades, where you see one pop, then the next pop, then a clone, then the next pop, and you really can't predict almost when it's best to use those small spells to wipe out the many troops.
Absolutely, because you got to, you know, pick your poison, pick and see which actual troops do I want to take care of, because if I get rid of the skeleton barrel now, there's the second skeleton barrel, and that leaves 2 healthy lava hounds, you know, so it becomes a really, really hard thing to deal with, and now we see Fnatic here switching up their deck composition just a little bit and probably trying to mirror that clone idea.
But here we go. It's Team Liquid with a very similar style of deck. This time dealt with much better in the opening moments, so some slight adjustments paying off so far for Fnatic.
Yeah, and you see that giant skeleton coming in and really cleaning up all those additional troops coming down the lane for Team Liquid. A great defensive adjustment by Fnatic.
So that's going to be critical, I think, for Fnatic as we move forward here, Andrew, is making sure that that giant skeleton is ready and saved for any time those big clone pushes come down.
Yeah, and also using your own clone spell in turn defensively to create massive, massive amounts of troops for cleanup.
So a minute 20 down, and right now it's Fnatic in the slight lead on the left-hand side. But the one thing about this deck that both Mac and Diego B are running, Andrew, is how quickly it can change the tide if not dealt with appropriately.
Yeah, you make one mistake if you're Fnatic here on defense, and it can change the entire game instantly. And now we're going to see another big push by Liquid coming in. You can imagine that clone spell's about to be dropped, and there it is. Miner comes into tank, trying to clean up the Witch. However, all of those skellies are going to make quick work of that Miner, which is going to be nice for Fnatic.
And this time seeing the baby dragons out in support of the golem. Not just that, but also playing good defense still. Down to 603 on the left-hand side, so in some significant trouble is Asuchini and Lemon Tea.
Yes, playing great defense, but it's still not quite enough. The Team Liquid continues to break through here, and Liquid becomes very scary and very dangerous when they start to dominate these 2v2 sets, knowing how well-rounded they are in their 1v1 skill set.
Now this seems like maybe a bit of an overcommittal there, throwing both the giant skeleton and the clone spell at the river offensively rather than defensively.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there, Rich. It did seem very, very aggressive, and with their tower only at 536 HP, I understand the desperation, but also 536 HP is going to take more than just one or two spells, so maybe a little overzealous by Fnatic.
And so the Lava Hound making its way towards that tower, but we do have Golemites kind of uncontested so far making their way towards the tower of Team Liquid. So, you know, it's with 8 seconds left. Oh, now at this point, it looks like it's going to be GG's there. The good game comes out from Bookmac and Diego B. And once again, this pair looking like they have really figured out how to do 2v2 for their squad.
Yeah, and you know, speaking with the Fnatic coach before the team and speaking with the match and speaking with Liquid before the match, it's so much about synergy and communication and the two of you understanding. Now, we wonder if Fnatic was maybe joking a little bit with speaking in Spanish throughout the 2v2 match, but you see that communication and teamwork is so important. And Rich, we actually got a little insight into Team Liquid and what they did this weekend to work on that team building.
Yeah, well, looked like a lot of time spent celebrating the birthday of what was it? I think it was Azili's birthday that weekend. Yeah, so they went and took some risks, maybe a little bit of gambling, and didn't exactly pay off for them. We heard some bad beat stories from the weekend, but they are definitely feeling together and gelling and having a good time. And, you know, it seems like some of the stress they had early on, they've relieved, and now they're ready to go out and play correctly.
Absolutely. So Diego B and Bookmac taking that very first 2v2 set, maybe after losing a little bit this weekend at the casino, bouncing back here at CRL.
And next set underway. Will this be similar to their first meeting where Team Liquid swept 2v2 and then took 1v1 in 3 games? We're going to find out right now.
Turn up the lights, play that music, and everyone look at the tunnel with mounting anticipation. Here they come, Surgical Goblin and Dion, poised for an epic 1v1 showdown.
It's a Dutch dust-up here in CRL. The two Netherlanders, Surgical Goblin and Dion, facing off for the first time here in Clash Royale League.
Yes, Dion here bouncing back after a rough couple weeks there in the middle of the beginning of the start of the season. He basically had been figured out, and here in CRL we've discovered you've got to learn more than one deck archetype. You've got to learn about 5, and then of course Surgical Goblin, maybe one of the most famous players in the entire world, now getting to play his comfort, which is in the 1v1 set. So now today we're going to see if Dion and Surge can bring it home for their teams.
And look at our bans here. Fnatic taking Miner off the table, and Team Liquid getting rid of Balloon.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen both of these cards be so effective, whether you're sneaking in that late balloon to tie up the game or take the set, and then also the miner, how effective it is in chipping all the time, chipping away throughout the match, tanking for those small troops like bats and spear goblins. Both great bans.
We've seen how critical banning is, especially Coach Kyle from Fnatic talking about banning to reduce deck pool from the opponent rather than to make room for yourself. The question now is Liquid doing the same thing against Dion? Game number 1 underway. Surgical Goblin up at the top of your screen. Fnatic's Dion at the bottom. And this will be the big question. Did Surgical Goblin ban Balloon just to avoid any sort of random moments? Or does he know something about Dion with them having a new analyst on the Liquid squad that this helps pin him down to more predictable decks?
I mean, they accredit that win over Queso to being about that analyst, having that extra set of eyes on the game tapes, figuring out your opponents, and really pigeonholing your people who you find in those 1v1 sets in King of the Hill.
So it looks like Dion going pretty traditional. It's going to be a Golem beatdown deck, most likely, with the Baby Dragon and Night Witch coming out. And a nice tower activation.
Yeah, really nice King Tower activation. That's got to be frustrating for Surge here early on, running a lot of these cheaper cards. But that Battle Ram connection is going to be huge. Dion just a second late on dropping that Prince. And so you got to think Dion here is running that very, I guess, now new traditional Golem meta beatdown with the Prince in it.
So that's a big moment, though, Andrew, taking so much damage on that left-hand tower, because now it's just 1 or 2 big pushes, and that thing can drop, and that tower activation no longer so valuable.
Well, yeah, you want to take that damage as a beatdown player in order to gain an elixir advantage. And as you can see clearly here, Surge is actually still ahead by about 2.5 elixirs. So just a little bit of poor decision-making on Dion's end.
So how will Dion contend with this Ram? And nice work, the combination of the Baby Dragon and the log, but still taking a couple of swings there.
Yeah, and Surge is here in a very nice position of just being able to keep the pressure up at all times so that Dion can't comfortably go him. However, right there was the perfect moment to do it. You saw him hit 10, but Surge...
Oh, no.
Oh, that's got to be so frustrating. Between the Royal Ghost, the P.E.K.K.A., and the Dark Goblin, that just becomes a golem that is now out of cycle for Dion, now hitting double elixir.
And Dion has to be frustrated, feeling like, hey, fine, I'll make him push into the same lane as my Golem, and then immediately eaten up by that P.E.K.K.A. So definitely not how you wanted to see it. And now with that Battle Ram on the right-hand side, defending on both lanes, is Dion with 40 seconds left. This is a very precarious position.
Yep, pulling away the Royal Ghost, or pulling away the units that were on the tower and freeing it up for the Royal Ghost, actually pulling it closer to the Princess Tower. This is just a really rough match for Dion. There's no way for him to really bounce back from this unless Surge was to make an insane out-of-character mistake.
And really, I think of course, that early Ram changed a lot, but I think it's that P.E.K.K.A. at the bridge that picked up the Golem that really kind of put this thing away for Surgical Goblin. And look, Dion staying strong, still playing hard, trying to stay in this thing, but down on the right-hand side, Log and Fireball, that is it. And really, he thinks he's in a good position, and then he gets to the bridge, and oh my god, there she is with all the armor swinging that big sword. It's the P.E.K.K.A.
Yeah, this is that moment you're talking about. Already at 853 health, it seemed like Dion had placed a perfect Golem in order to pick up this incoming push. However, he needed to recognize Surge was still at a massive elixir advantage. Instead of dropping the Golem up high, he should have maybe dropped the Night Witch behind his King Tower and created a bigger push going into double elixir. Surgical, realizing that Dion was never at an elixir advantage, just kept the pressure up, and Dion had no way to respond.
Well, this is where he feels good. You mentioned in the 1v1 set, the King of the Hill he hasn't loved because you get it's that one shot, but in 3 games he feels like he can beat pretty much anyone, and so far, 1 game away from doing that right here against Dion.
And Rich, moving in and talking about that playoff picture coming up, if you lose the season sweep to a specific team and you guys are tied at the end of the season, that is not good for you, my friend, because they are going to make it to the playoffs over you.
That's a tiebreaker problem, of course. And as we saw, making to those playoffs is so critical. Even those 3 and 4 spots, you know, you still have to win now 3 matches in a row to make it to the World Finals, but it's better than having no matches to win by being in 5 through 8.
Of course, and so that position 1, that number 1 seed spot, you see what an advantage you get. Not only do you get to learn everything that your opponents have in those first 2 rounds of the playoffs, but you get to sit back, relax, and just practice.
So the Magic Archer doing some good work, and here it's the Ice Wizard making its way across, but picked up very, very well by the Royal Ghost. The Ice Wizard, of course, very recent news. Looks like it's getting a buff here after the community voted to take it from a 2-second freeze to a 2.5-second freeze. A lot of people very, very interested to see how that turns out.
Yeah, a lot of people not very happy about it, especially those that here are competing in CRL, and it's because the card, the Ice Wizard, is already so strong. But I do believe that seeing that buff in Ice Wizard is going to change up the bans that we see so regularly. So I actually think it's a good thing. People might see it as an overbuffed card, but that also might take it out of competitive play, then changing up the meta once again. So
well, buffs aren't permanent too, Andrew.
Yeah,
Things can change over time, so who knows how that will fall out as time goes on. And it's a card where we see a ton of competitive play, but between it being a legendary and being one that isn't obviously super powerful to a newer player, it's not as common in the middle of the ladder. So maybe this we'll see more newer players getting some experience with that card as it continues to grow in this moment.
Yeah, there's cards that are like that are very high skill cards, or cards that when you first start to play, you're like, why is Ice Spirit one? What is this for? What does Ice Golem do? You know, why do I use Ice Wizard when I could use the regular Wizard? It does so much more damage, but you really learn the utility of these cards. It trumps just their DPS.
Yeah, one of the things for some of the people here on the crew at CRL have gotten more and more into playing the game. You know, cameramen and people who are here working, making this show happen, and they've really enjoyed finding out, like, oh, I had no idea Ice Spirit was so useful,
right?
And now I see the pros play it every single time, and I'm getting to use it.
Yeah, and then all of us being able to have the privilege to watch these pros play live, you see the decisions that they make, and you're like, oh wow, I'm never going to do what I've been doing ever again, and now this is the new way to play the game.
Well, right now, this game in front of us, very, very tight. We're now already getting close into our sudden death overtime. And while Surgical Goblin does have about a 500 hit point lead, maybe 450 on the left-hand side, playing fairly similar concepts with these Royal Hogs, Dion keeping it very close.
Yeah, you got to imagine that's a big spell that Surge has there as his 8th and final card. Wondering if it's going to be something like a rocket to close out the game. With the deck, oh, there's a poison, so that makes sense there. And now that he's got a good elixir advantage, he can play the poison comfortably, still have the Tombstone and Cycle to clean up the Royal Hog push that Dion's going to want to send in.
We've now entered our first overtime of the day. Very rare so far here at Clash Royale League.
Wow, and not using the Tombstone, opting out of it and just trying to clean it up with the Log plus the Royal Ghost.
And now Tombstone opposite side, and picked up fairly nicely with that 2-spell combination. So Dion holding strong, but down at 824, he has to be very careful here not to make any big mistakes.
Yeah, and another one of these interactions that we've found to be so familiar here at CRL is the Magic Archer in the center of your side of the map, picking off the Tombstone on your opponent's side that they're playing defensively. There it is, right again, exactly. Thanks, Surge.
So very nice play, but again, Dion doing a good job mitigating the damage. We are down to 151 remaining in our sudden death overtime.
And Dion making a really slight misplay there, just kind of lining up his Ice Wizard behind his Mega Minion, allowing that Magic Archer to get so much chip damage on him, is then forcing Dion to use more Elixir on defense than he wants, giving Surge a massive advantage now, not having a Tombstone in cycle. This is probably going to be GG.
And it's the Magic Archer getting tower from that distance. Wow. So that is going to be it. Wow. Fantastic play by Surgical Goblin. You mentioned that. Just one tiny misplay. And I think that's an important thing for people to think about, is that misplays create more misplays. You do one thing wrong, it kind of forces you to do something else you don't want to do to make up for it. Next thing you know, it's a cascading set of problems.
You literally took about half the words I'm about to say out of my mouth right now. Surge, as you can see here, Team Liquid taking the season sweep and the match sweep over Fnatic. And to finish the thought, Rich, you're so right. I was playing the game yesterday, and I realized, I made someone make a misplay early on, and it put them in about 2 elixir advantage. And then being able to keep up the pressure, recognizing what they have in cycle, it is a total cascading effect. You make one mistake early on, and if you're playing against someone who's good enough to recognize it and exploit it, there's almost no way to come back, which is why you talk to pros and they say, you can make maybe one mistake. If you make 2 or 3, you're gonna lose.
And here we go. We're seeing, this is a little earlier in the match, and trying to get that King Tower activation, so that's also a big one as well, not picking that one up. And here, where we're at the end, that's the finish. It's the Magic Archer getting on tower. We didn't get a chance to see that slight misplay from a few minutes, from about 20, 30 seconds before that. But yeah, that misplay required, you saw now, the Tombstone played too early, played a little bit too far inside.
Yep.
Poison picks it up, the way is clear, and that's GG's. And there you go, Team Liquid taking both the game, the set, and the match pretty handily.
Yes.
And that's a guy you can't make mistakes against. Probably an arguably number 1 player in the world in Surgical Goblin. Yes.
And Chrissy St. John is standing by with him, of course, right now.
Thanks, guys. Surgical Goblin, a clean sweep. I mean, it seemed like it was easy. You only went into overtime once the whole match, was it?
I believe so. I mean, it definitely wasn't easy. I prepared a lot for it, like for the 1v1 and just in general, like also the 2v2. For example, yesterday we were doing some internal practice, like me and Azilis versus Diego and Boofmac. And personally, I practiced like 6 hours yesterday, and I actually ended up predicting his ban as well. Like I predicted him to ban Miner.
It seems like you had some great counters, especially in game 1. I mean, when that P.E.K.K.A. dropped against his Golem, it was heartbreaking. Did you know what he was going to throw?
Well, to be honest, I didn't expect him to use Golem, so well played on his part for surprising me, but I ended up having a really good matchup because, of course, like P.E.K.K.A. versus Golem in general is, pretty good.
And it seems like your team synergy has really gelled. I mean, every time your team comes in, it feels like it's a bunch of friends hanging out. How have you got past the stress of the first weeks?
Well, I think we just figured out our best kind of 2v2 duo. Like so far, we're 8-0 in 1v1 sets, but our overall score is 4-4, so that's a bit unfortunate, of course. But right now, we finally found, the winning 2v2 duo, so hopefully we can get a good win streak going.
Certainly winning 2v2 is kind of the key to this league. Yep. Thanks so much for talking to me, and back to you guys.
Thanks, Christy. Team Liquid becoming big-time poker fans and poker players, and looks like they had the trump card this time, playing the perfect set up against their team, against their opponents here in Fnatic, and no movement on the standings, but again, with that playoff picture starting to form up, that 4-4, so important for Team Liquid.
Yeah, you and I were speaking before the match, Rich, and I was saying it almost seems as if a loss today is much more impactful than a win. Now, Liquid obviously very, very happy being in that 3-way tie, but now Fnatic in a position looking like playoffs might be just out of reach for them unless they can really turn things around here in the next upcoming few weeks.
And talking about the playoff picture, coming up next, we have the 6-1 number 1 team in the region in Team Queso up against G2. With a win today, they could move into that very important second place spot.
Whew, baby! Who's ready for a showdown at the top of the standings? Next up, surging 3rd-ranked G2 Esports against the top-ranked cheesy ones of Team Queso. What's better than this? Answer, nothing.
G2 Esports in an important position. This match today could change everything. And that man right there, Faye, back from exams, ready to be the difference maker for his squad. And across the way, Team Queso having their first loss of the season. Their number 1 rated player, Kuchiku, undefeated in sets, was not there in the lineup. Back today and looking for a chance to make that difference and secure that number 1 spot as we move closer to the end of the season. Our second match of the day at the top of the standings may not seem like a lot riding, but you have Team Queso who's fighting to keep that first place spot against Allegiance making a run. And of course, G2 here can really decide where they fall as we move towards these playoffs.
Yeah, Team Queso coming off of their very first loss ever, of course, to Team Liquid. We've got Soking, Kuchiku, St. Belican, and Bennyhu, and their opponents, G2, in 3rd place, surging for that top spot. Fairchew, Sheer, Canario, and of course, Faye, who was late to the party.
just coming off a loss to Allegiance, and as you saw, Allegiance in second place right now, so that match really critical for how the top of the standings are playing out at the moment. G2 wishing they had that one back. And a big part of that is a missing piece who's here today. Standing by with Christy St. John, it's Faye.
Thanks, guys. So, Faye, everyone seems to think that you are the biggest threat on G2. Would you agree?
I don't know. We are all very good players. You can see Canario, when I wasn't here, he was doing a very good job. And the other players too, so we can do it all well.
Now, you've been away studying for exams, of course, and you've had to watch the league, you've had to stay in touch with your team. Do you feel like you're at a disadvantage at all, being away for so long?
Yeah, it's a disadvantage because I can't speak with them because the timetable is very different. So my hour is too late there when here it's in the morning. So it was difficult, but I did what I could.
And of course, you've been back for a little bit studying Team Queso. Last time you guys didn't do as well. So tell me, this time, are you prepped? This time, are you going to take home the win?
Yes, we will try to take the win. So let's see.
Let's see indeed. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Christy. G2 Esports looking to get revenge on Team Queso after their earlier meeting this season. Of course, Faye wasn't in the lineup there, so we'll see how he factors in as they meet today. And of course, our coach is about to get their squads ready and pumped up for this match inside the war rooms.
Bueno, chavales, Team Queso. Ya empezó la segunda vuelta. Ellos han tenido toda la vuelta de vamos por el 7-0, por el no sé qué. Yo estaba ya harto de leerlo, la verdad, tanto 7-0 de ellos. Vamos a hacer que no puedan decirlo más. Primera le ganamos y quitamos su vuelta perfecta y la empezamos nosotros, ¿no? Sí. Ya tenemos Faye, no hay excusa. 2 para 2. Canario, Sir. Ya podemos volver a hacer estas relaciones que nos salió también al principio. Además, han manejado ellos a hueso, que es lo que vosotros manejaste en su momento. Perfecto. Sabemos el plan, tenemos todo perfectamente lo que ellos planean más o menos. Faye, 1 contra 1. Te ha tocado Cuchi. No sabemos por qué eso que no ha venido. Cuchi es ahora mismo el top 1 de la competición en un ratio, así que ya te ha dicho que en el coche. Bájalo, que si no, no sube él. Así que tienes que bajarlo, tío. Hazlo por tu también. Claro, tienes que subir tú. Hazlo por tu compañero, tío.
No, hazlo por mí, no por ti.
Hazlo por él, hazlo por él, hazlo por él.
Lo pensaré.
Vale. Y nada, chavales, sí, eso. Hay que ganar sí o sí, no hay excusa. Tenemos una semana muy difícil, pero vamos a ir tercero de ella. Yo lo tengo clarísimo. ¿Vosotros también?
Sí.
Pues ya está, adelante.
Okay, guys, we are here again. Aquí estamos de nuevo. Jugamos contra G2, los conocemos muy bien. We know them really, really good. They are friends of us. 2v2, you know, Poison and Lava Hound ban. What are you planning on playing?
We think with the Poison ban, Witch and Night Witch will be good because Poison's very good against them, so we're planning on using Witch and Night Witch.
Oh, nice. And the trade house of us, the trademark, the column. Are you gonna love that? Are you gonna use that?
No, we're going to use Lava.
But it's banned. Ok, let's go. 1 para 1, Cuchi, juegas contra Faye, le conoces muy bien. ¿Qué ban sabía? ¿Tornado?
P.K. y Tornado.
P.K. ¿Por qué ese P.K.?
El P.K. yo creo que, a ver, lo he hecho más que nada por Mind Games, pero igual sí que puede caer algún beatdown.
Algún beatdown. Te encanta el beatdown, ¿eh?
Me encanta.
Y ya sabemos que a Faye le encantan los cerdos, los cerditos, el trío. Cuidado con eso.
Fantasma.
Además con el tornado ban es bastante probable. Lo bueno es que nos quitamos los magos de hielo, lápida, tornado, esos que
Y
son
también muy bueno con montapuercos también, muy bueno, así que hay que tener cuidado.
Vale, yo creo que vamos bien. Ya sabéis que si luego llevamos el King of the Hill, if we get to the King of the Hill, that's our strong point. Ese es nuestro punto fuerte, así que vamos a ganar esto y a por ellos, ¿vale? Venga, todos a la de 3. 1, 2, 3, ¡Queso!
The teams have told their secrets in the war room. But as my mom says, secrets are no fun unless they're shared with everyone. Come out to the arena and air your dirty laundry. 2v2 now!
Now the King's got me curious what kind of secrets he's holding on to. But no secrets about this matchup. Our lineups, it looks like Team Queso running back what worked well the first time, and now Sheer paired up with Canario for 2v2.
Yeah, Canario here being really the 1v1 specialist for G2. However, with Faye back, now it frees up Canario's role, whether it's King of the Hill, 2v2, or 1v1. He is 1-0, however, in 2v2 sets, and their opponents, Benny Hu and Saint Belican, as you said, these guys took the win over G2 in Week 2, so you got to think some mind games there coming out from Team Queso.
Our ban cards for this entire 2v2 set, Poison and Lava Hound off the board.
Yeah, Lava Hound being banned is always interesting because as soon as that comes out of play, you got to think it's going to be a Golem deck for the most part. But is it going to be Golem Giant Skelly, Golem Balloon, Double Golem? Who knows?
We've seen how valuable P.E.K.K.A. is now.
Yes, absolutely.
Very recently in this 2v2 set to try to stop those Golem decks. So who has what in store? The rematch, G2 versus Team Queso on its way.
Okay, let's go.
Team Queso, St. Belican, and Benny Hu at the top of your screen. G2's Canario and Sheer at the bottom. And of course, as you said before, Andrew, Canario, while he hasn't been in 2v2 often, he is currently undefeated in this set.
Yeah, I mean, Canario really has one of the best records in all of CRL EU, and that is that he is 1-0 in 2v2 sets and 6-1 in 1v1. However, now starting to find some King of the Hill woes at 5-3. Still a great record.
And there we see the P.E.K.K.A. coming out. So maybe some of these players keeping an eye on the other squads in CRL and seeing how useful the P.E.K.K.A. has been. You know, kind of surprising it didn't make more appearances early in the season with how much Golem we've seen.
Yeah, it is really surprising. It's almost as if people just kind of overlooked it, you know, and you saw a lot of that Giant Skelly Golem combo, but it just hasn't been as effective as this P.E.K.K.A. working its way. You just need one P.E.K.K.A. in both decks to control the defense of that beatdown. And then now with Tornado being in play, you see that King Tower being activated, but also the Executioner coming in.
So a slight lead on the right-hand side for G2 Esports. We'll see how much that P.E.K.K.A. affects things as we move into the second half of regulation time.
Yeah, and I'm also very curious to see if, you know, that Ice Wiz buff coming in, if in 2v2 we start to see more and more of the Executioner and the Ice Wiz coupled together with that NATO. In that next patch, that could be something that is brutal to deal with.
Of course, 7 other balance updates on their way in the next patch, so be curious to see how that does affect our meta.
It is a really exciting place to be in here at Clash Royale with the meta becoming so well balanced that, you know, they're starting to look to fans, as you said before, to find that 8th and final balance update. It's a treat to find a game that's always evolving and always bettering itself.
So as we enter double elixir time, it is now Team Queso with the lead, the tower of G2 down to 1254, but now coming across the river, a little bit of work from G2 Esports picked up by the Prince and the Dart Goblin in the pocket.
Yeah, and right now we're really seeing the miners being the difference maker in the game. Both teams using those to get the good, basically most of all the damage that's come in throughout this entire game.
And we now see the P.E.K.K.A. dropped in response, but this time a little bit of action in front of the Golem, so maybe looking to clear that P.E.K.K.A. out of the way and make room for one of these 2 big boys to get to the tower.
Yeah, interesting here having, I believe, double P.E.K.K.A. I think both these guys have P.E.K.K.A. in their hand. You'd think maybe one of them might run a larger tank or like a Golem-style tank.
So the Rocket clearing a lot out of the way, but not quite enough. Although it does get tower damage, so that's a big hit there. Down to 685 is the right-hand tower of G2.
Okay, perfect.
But look at this making a big push on the right-hand side as well. So back and forth the action here in this opening game of our 2v2 set.
And I misspoke. It is just the one P.E.K.K.A., which does make sense. A lot of utility cards here in Sheer's hand, basically providing all of the utility around and the quick offense. That Rocket coming in and sealing the deal for Team Queso's St. Belican and Benny Hu.
It really seems like the Rocket was the difference maker here, you know, with the P.E.K.K.A. chewing up those Golems, not able to do much. But you see here that big pull, the Tornado dating all that stuff back right onto the tower, and then the Rocket coming in, so getting double utility here. Big moves for Team Queso.
Yeah, really, really well played by Queso there with the NATO and the Rocket. With G2 here, though, I'm thinking that I like the idea of having the one P.E.K.K.A. and then a lot of support cards, but I still believe you need that maybe Golem or Giant Skeleton to create that dual lane pressure. We've seen the success of defending one lane pretty conservatively with just the P.E.K.K.A. and maybe one other card, and then doing a counter push with a Golem and like a Balloon, and how hard that is for the opponents to keep up with all that.
Game number 2 on its way, so will some of the adjustments be made? Will they run it back the same way here as we move into our second part of 2v2? You know, Andrew, looking at those stats we just saw, we also saw that there were no buildings played. So when you're running that P.E.K.K.A expecting Golem, you might think at least one building being played in there just to take some pressure off the P.E.K.K.A as your only Golem defense.
Yes, and it just really helps mitigate everything coming across the river. And now you see both of these guys throwing tombstones in their decks, and you see G2 here adjusting by putting the Royal Hogs in and the Magic Archer, now having cards that demand responses and can create quick offensive pushes, still keeping that P.E.K.K.A in hand. And I don't know if you also see this, we have a Mega Knight in play.
So there we go, some quick offensive work there done by the Magic Archer. Very nice placement by G2. And another early King Tower activation by Team Queso. There you go, you thought that cannon cart, you're like, are they gonna let this
needs
happen?
to happen.
So the P.E.K.K.A does pick up the cannon cart there. You know, seeing that they're not against beatdown, you know, usually you would think a P.E.K.K.A played against a cannon cart right at the bridge, maybe a little overplay there, but with no Golem to be fighting up against, maybe that's a better play in this context.
Yeah, it seemed that they felt very confident dropping that right on top of the cannon cart. I'm not sure what other responses they actually had in hand. But yeah, just kind of an interesting but still safe play. And then we see this freeze coming back in. We haven't seen a lot of that graveyard freeze in 2v2 these last couple weeks.
We saw it a lot in the first couple of weeks, though, Andrew. Of course, we mentioned at the top of the show how it was really Team Liquid. Also, I mean, that match Team Liquid between Fnatic that opened up all of CRL. In their second game, both teams ran a Lava Hound Graveyard freeze deck.
Yeah, and you know, now we've seen that meta kind of shift, seeing the Graveyard kind of move out and the clone spell kind of working its way in, even if it's Lava Hound or Golem.
So things slowing down here a little bit as we enter double elixir time. Royal Hogs getting pulled to the middle. The Fireball, though, does not pick them all up, so a little bit of damage here on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it does clean up that flying machine, but not able to hit all of the units.
So now down to 848. Team Queso in a little bit of trouble here. This new meta or off 2v2 meta deck is being run by Canario and Sheer. So far paying off pretty nicely.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see when Sheer or Canario are actually going to use that Mega Knight, if they're going to need to at all. Kind of not having the Royal Hogs or Three Musketeers in hand, it doesn't really demand a response.
Look at what that work did with the Tornado and the Magic Archer. You know, you don't see that as often as you see more splash damage troops, but that piercing damage with the Tornado getting a lot done there for G2. So as we enter sudden death overtime, we're seeing another Graveyard probably freeze coming in to back that thing up. Maybe electing to spend some more of their, save some elixir for defense here, considering that their right-hand tower is so far down.
Yeah, and that exchange did not go well for G2, actually. Team Queso kind of took, I'd say, the upper hand in that exchange. Not saying that puts them in the winning position, however, that exchange just wasn't great for them.
And the Royal Hogs not getting to tower, so there you go, Team Queso making some smart calls here, not overcommitting with their right-hand tower so low.
I mean, Team Queso is still in a position to adjust and win this game. It's going to be a very tall task, especially now. Yeah, now it's out of hand.
At this point, that's a big shift. And they did some good plays there, but being behind, especially with a deck that has so much firepower, like G2 was playing, getting behind that early, very difficult to come back from. So let's take a look at that replay. You see the log picking up, and this is not the Fireball replay. This is one of the first pushes with the Hog.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, the very first exchange these guys had, and you saw the Magic Archer coming in and just doing work. And this was kind of the story of the match. It wasn't really that either team had really pulled away. However, G2 had just made plays throughout that put them in the lead, and this was the moment you were talking about,
that Tornado, Magic Archer, and look at that, the pierce damage getting through all of those. The log cleans it up a bit, but not before that push gets stopped right at the river. So game number 2 goes to G2 Esports, and we are now to a third and deciding game in this 2v2 set. St. Bellic and Benny Who not getting the sweep this time.
Yeah, it's always tough because you're trying to pick a deck that's going to game your opponent's strategy, and that's why cards like the Mega Knight will make its way into your hand but not really have a great purpose throughout the entire game. So interesting to see if they'll be able to make new adjustments that are perfect for their opponents.
Game number 3 coming at you right now.
Okay, let's go.
Game number 3, set number 1, hanging in the balance. And look at that, we are back to goal.
Yep, back to goal, and we still see that Mega Knight in Shear's hand, but the P.E.K.K.A is responding, and even the Mega Knight is going to demand more of a response than the original deck that they ran with the Cannon Cart in it for G2. And this is the playoff push, man. This is Power Week here, so this is a big, big moment for both these guys being in the top 3 spots of the standings.
Well, you know, Andrew, I'm wondering if they might end up at any point using that Mega Knight and P.E.K.K.A in tandem, the P.E.K.K.A picking up the goal and the Mega Knight trying to clean up some of those support troops.
Yeah, if you can get a P.E.K.K.A in front of your Mega Knight and then tank for the Mega Knight, however, your Mega Knight hops in front of the P.E.K.K.A, doing the splash damage, cleaning up all those small troops, that would be the ideal situation. But it is a really tough push to make happen, duo or combination to make happen, just because they're both so expensive.
Yeah, a 14 elixir combination, of course. You can do that sort of stuff here in 2v2 when you have 20 elixir you're working with potentially.
But if your opponent recognizes it, cleans it up with a very efficient air counter, and then pushes the other lane, you might find yourself in a really, really rough spot.
And we do see a lot of aerial troops for Belican and Benny, and not only that, of course, we have seen them use that NATO rocket combination to perfection so far.
Yeah, we see the double baby dragons. They've proven to actually be very strong here in 2v2 because of their splash damage and actually having substantial HP as well.
So the Zappy doing a little bit of work there on the tower. You know, I was talking to Team Queso about how they relax, and the team watches horror movies to try to blow off a little steam, but not Belican, apparently. He does not join them for the horror movie festival.
For some reason, I was most surprised that Belican would be the one to watch horror movies, because you see how how emotional he is. You'd think that horror movies would just stress him out, so that's very fitting for him.
But no stress here in 2v2. St. Belican playing very, very well, but now the right-hand tower of Team Queso down to 15-19.
Wow, and a lot of Zappies here, both of them. We haven't seen double Zappies being run much in 2v2. The idea there, obviously, since they don't have many great responses to the tank, is just to slow it down so much and then just use the P.E.K.K.A to cut right through it.
And Zappies do a great job of kind of stopping the tank in its tracks, and now we're seeing, look at that defensive trifecta, the P.E.K.K.A, the Magic Archer, and the Tornado, doing a decent job of preventing most of this from coming down, but not quite cleaning it up, so now they have to play very smart here to avoid significant damage.
And wow, if Queso keeps up the pressure right now, they might have G2 against the ropes.
We are entering sudden death overtime, and now suddenly things are pretty tight.
Wow.
The slight lead on the right-hand side from Team Queso, but don't forget, their left-hand tower is now just around 2,000 hit points.
And that double Prince charge, when that Prince is charged up, it just pops one of those Royal Hogs. So you get 2 of them coming down, you've immediately mitigated half the damage.
And now we're in spell cycle range, so down to 213, Fireball Rocket. We'll see who can get this thing done quickly, and the Fireball cleans it up.
Was there 2?
That might have been
395. It had to be.
That had to be 2. I did not see that right-hand tower. It wasn't at 201.
No, it was at 395. I was looking at the HP. I wasn't looking at the hands of G2. I was so intently focusing on the bottom tower.
Let's take a look at those replays, and starting off here, it's the Tornado Magic Archer play.
Yeah, you talked about it in the match, and you saw how effective it was, really kind of stopping a push that would have been really, really detrimental for G2 to deal with.
And so much still coming down the lane, but picked up with those Zappies. The Fireball cleaned up the rest of that stuff. So fantastic defense and a critical moment here by G2. Now let's go to the finish, and this was a huge moment.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what was going on. It was probably G2's Canario and Sheer dragging the Fireball, which is why they were both out of hand and why it looked like one gigantic Fireball going in and taking that tower from Team Queso.
But it's G2 this time coming out on top in 2v2. And Canario looking pretty comfortable here in a set he's only appeared in once.
Absolutely. G2 taking that set now from Queso. They have split that 2v2 set on the season. Now moving into 1v1, we're not going to have Soaking. We're going to switch it up a little bit and see if G2 can also take this set to sweep Queso.
Let's keep this simple. 2 players, 8 cards each. Whoever knocks down more towers wins. You ready? Let's go! Faye! Kuchiku, it's time for the 1v1 showdown.
1v1 about to get underway, and here we have Kuchiku with completely undefeated in sets for Team Queso up against Faye, making his return to the lineup for G2.
Yeah, we got Faye here, who's 2-1 in King of the Hill, 1-2 in 1v1 games. but 2-0 in 2v2 or 2v2 games. So he's had, only been around for a couple matches so far for G2, but heralded as their strongest player. And then Kuchiku, someone who's had a lot of success here for Team Queso, but is honestly had not a ton of experience, even though he's done so well.
4 overall sets, but he's also been in King of the Hill, a total win rate in CRL of 10 and 3 of the ban cards. Wow. Tornado and Kuchiku taking P.E.K.K.A off the board. Yeah, fascinating to see P.E.K.K.A banned now. So you expect, okay, someone's got to want to run a Golem beatdown deck, but then you got to think that's what would be gamed, right? If I'm going to ban P.E.K.K.A, then you got to imagine your opponent's going to run Golem, so what's going to happen? Could be Giant as well as a possibility, so we'll see what happens here in 1v1. 2 of the best going head-to-head. And, okay, that goblin sound, it sounds like Kuchiku. It sounds like it's saying Kuchiku,
totally
so I
does.
totally get that as the opening emote. Miner trying to get on tower, picked up by the Dark Prince.
Faye dishing that BM out.
All of Faye's emotes are confused. I wonder if he heard the goblin say Kuchiku, and he's like, wait a second, why don't I get, where's one that says Faye?
A great job of Faye recognizing those minions, dropping the Mega Minions so that Dark Prince demanded even more of a response from Kuchiku.
Faye trying to replicate the success his older brother Sheer just had in 2v2. A fantastic pair if you're putting two family members together on the same team.
Yeah, communication being the #1 thing that all teams discuss here in CRL. You got to imagine having some blood relation has got to give you a leg up.
And there we go. It is Giant for Faye, so trying to take advantage of the Tornado and P.E.K.K.A ban, but getting eaten up alive by that Inferno Dragon.
That Royal Ghost is just going to get 1 hit in.
Two hits. It's that non-corporeal form is such sort of an X factor to deal with.
Yeah, you feel so fortunate when you get away with your Royal Ghost having 1 or 2 HP, making it all the way across the river.
And this time not predicting the Miner effectively is Faye, so right-hand tower now down to 1846 as we move past the midway point of regulation time.
Yeah, and Faye had to use more elixir than he wanted to respond right there, and now it's in turn we're going to see how Kuchiku makes him pay for it.
So Kuchiku with a slight elixir and tower lead as we get closer to double elixir time, and we have yet to see his final card here. You know, we are seeing a Miner deck often paired with Poison, and there it is, the Mega Knight.
Yeah, again, every time I see the Mega Knight, I always just think it's to deal with the Royal Hogs. In decks like this, in situations like this, however, I don't think it's as effective, obviously, as you'd want like a P.E.K.K.A, but it's banned. Even a Giant Skelly in this situation, because it would deal so much damage with that death damage, and the whole point of Faye's deck is to support troops behind a Giant.
So the Royal Ghost not going to get tower, and we are seeing it is that Giant double Prince deck, of course, from Faye. One that can be very frustrating to deal with. And an interesting matchup against that Mega Knight, especially when both Princes come down at the same time.
Yeah, and Kuchiku here only has one real way of resetting him. The Fireball is an option, but that's not going to do it, so you're going to have to use the Zap or drop guards in front.
Although that Inferno Dragon has done a great job of tearing through those Giants as it is built to do. So far, the Giant Double Prince not finding a way through consistently here against Kuchiku.
Yeah, and Kuchiku is doing a great job of recognizing the cycle, knowing when that Electro Wizard's going to come down, knowing when it's out of range, all the things that are making his Inferno Dragon get so much value.
So Prince facing off against Mega Knight, that's 5 for 7, stopping it before any more damage. And the Mega Knight doing a great job stopping that Dark Prince, but then we'll see this Prince come through again. And coupled with the E-Wiz, that's a nasty combination.
Yeah, and then now in turn, even if Faye does create a counter push, Kuchiku's got that Inferno Dragon back in cycle, and Faye doesn't have the Electro Wiz, and that Miner able to chip away every time just kind of gives him a slight advantage.
It seems like the direct damage really has been the difference here, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, you got the direct damage. You've also got the Inferno Dragon that really, really cleans up that Giant. And then the Mega Knight is tanky enough to deal with a few of those Prince hits.
So while the Mega Knight maybe not the ideal piece to round out this deck, certainly doing its job so far. We are halfway through sudden death overtime, and Kuchiku looking to be in command consistently, deciding where the game takes place, barring a big mistake, and wow, that almost would have been one of them. The Royal Ghost at the last second picking up that Prince.
Yeah, but it was really just masterful play by Kuchiku. All those things I was talking about with the way he protected his Inferno Dragon, distracting the Electro Wizard with the guards, with the Fireball, making it so that that push did not do all that it wanted for Faye. And again, you've got this moderately healthy Mega Knight coming down the lane.
But there's
with an Inferno
3
Dragon.
hits from the Giant, Andrew. Are you at this point, are you concerned by that at all?
I mean, I'm sure. Definitely. You never want the Giant to get that many hits coming down the lane.
And now here we go, Faye picking up those minor pushes. So this could be a moment where the momentum is changing down to 44 seconds. You know, it looked like Faye was just going to have to try to defend this thing out, but down to 867, he could be threatening.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think the Miner's going to come in with that Mega Knight crossing the river. He's going to keep trying to chip away Kuchiku is until that's in Fireball range.
Well, the question now, does he have time with the Fireball cleaning up there at the river? Down to 21 seconds.
Ooh, and that Electro Wizard staying alive could be a huge thing.
The Giant, though, looks like it is going to get stopped. So now with 13 seconds, I believe we are in draw territory. The Prince will stop that. The Miner goes in the back, but unless it can do some serious work here in the next 3 seconds, the Fireball not going to be enough. So the Zap not going to do it either. We have a draw here to open up 1v1.
I'm so surprised that we didn't see the Miner coming in more towards the end of the match. You see a difference of 51 HP being left on that tower. That's the difference maker in the match. That's less than 1 Miner hit, and he almost didn't play one for the entirety of the last minute of the game. Now, I understand you got to play defense. You got to keep an offensive push going, but there was that Fireball that he played at the end that seemed like he allocated 4 Elixir instead of the 3 to the Miner that changed the game. And this is that push you're talking about. That Giant staying alive a lot longer than Kuchiku anticipating. That, in turn, made it so he couldn't send in Miners because he had to play defense.
And that Zap there resetting at the last second with so little HP, the Giant getting that one more swing, making it feel more dangerous there for Kuchiku. And you were right, it's that Fireball he played, just a little bit high there. That was the difference, because we were down to around 50 hit points there at the end. So we have a draw in our first game, meaning we could go to 4 games here in 1v1. Very exciting stuff. 2 of the best facing off in 1v1. Kuchiku! I'm telling you, man, if you don't hear it.
I know, I hear it. And this is the type of games that we are looking for at the top of the ladder, top of the bracket. You look, you see Queso in the first position, you see G2 in the third, and you imagine the games and matches have to feel exactly like this.
Yeah, you gotta wonder if that Fireball was played a little high because Kuchiku was worried that his tower was now getting into death range.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it was, or else he could have allotted to Fireball the tower and then maybe missing one of the other units, changing the outcome of the game.
2 ghosts bump and move past each other, although getting one swing in, or getting some swings in here is Kuchiku, so now we're seeing a whole lot of Giant.
Yeah, we're probably going to see a very similar run back here, but maybe the 2 decks have actually swapped owners.
And another situation, a lot of hits from that Giant.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and already you see Kuchiku outplaying Faye's original Giant play in the last game. It is fascinating how, of all the deck compositions and all of CRL, even with these 2 cards off the table, these guys just switch decks.
Yeah, it's an interesting question here, whether Kuchiku's last card, probably not the Dark Prince at this point, probably a big spell we'd expect.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be the exact same, but very, very similar. I believe the Mega Minion is the difference. Maybe we'll see a Lightning or something like that, something that's really going to deal with this Inferno Dragon, as Kuchiku recognized that was his X factor last match.
So as we move into double Elixir time, things still not quite taking shape yet. We do have the significant tower damage on Faye's right-hand tower, but still no one really breaking all the way out, although this Giant could again get at least one, maybe two swings.
And this is the thing that Kuchiku has done better throughout this set than Faye is showing you in this game, and that was that Kuchiku always made sure that his Inferno Dragon was in cycle when needed against that Giant, except for that very last push, which did end up in turn bringing it to a draw. However, Faye at 780 HP with not even into overtime yet, this is not a good position for him to be in. This is going to be very hard for him to keep up the defense. And again, he's not playing the Inferno Dragon as conservatively as Kuchiku did. It's useless right now.
Very high, and it's the E-Wiz just not letting it work. And that, I mean, that is a lot of hits from that Giant. I think we saw maybe collectively 7 or 8 total hits from that Giant, and you know, you're not going to stand tall very long when that's happening.
No, and with a basic mirror match, switching of decks despite maybe 1 or 2 cards, you see the huge difference maker, and we've said it and we'll keep saying it, you got to protect your Inferno Dragon if that's your #1 response to their tank. And right here, he drops the Inferno Dragon too low and the Mega Knight too late, and you see that late zap coming in for TQ's Kuchiku just makes it so that Giant gets 4 hits in its very first push.
So now we finally have a win here in 1v1. Kuchiku taking game number 2. So remember now, this is important. If Kuchiku wins here, that's set. Yep. Nice work, well played. But if Faye wins this one, we would go to a 4th game that would also have tiebreaker lowest tower rules applied as well. Good luck from both. Are we going to get the Kuchiku one more time? Kuchiku! Well, opting to just stay with the good luck this time is Kuchiku for Team Queso. Yet again playing very well, and now we're seeing a Hog Rider.
Kuchiku looks like he's going back to his original deck in this set, and we could be maybe seeing 2.6 from Faye? Nope.
No, switching it up. That Mega Knight does not get a jump. Very nice play with the guards.
Faye doing a better job of protecting his Inferno Dragon right there with the guards, keeping the Mega Knight from jumping onto his tower, and Kuchiku recognizing the well played.
Inferno Dragon not going to be much of a threat here. Gets a little bit of damage, but first minute down, pretty even so far. And you got to be frustrated when you miss that minor pickup by a tile.
Yeah, 1 tile, and it does make all the difference.
Very quiet here in the arena. Both teams intently focused on what their representative is doing at the podium.
And those are some of my favorite pushes, are those really, really cheap pushes where you realize your Lumberjack has now survived with full HP to clean up the miner. Even though you missed the miner, let's drop an Ice Golem right in front of it to make our opponents play defense.
Respect from both sides. Down to 17-12 on the left is Kuchiku as we move past the first minute and a half of regulation.
Both of these teams really recognizing how crucial a loss by Team Queso is for both of them.
And a second time not picking up that miner, so still the Lumberjack is fast enough to get around. And that actually is a really nice choice. I like that choice as a minor defense.
Yeah, it's a really great minor defense. It does a lot of damage very quickly. It's going to get to the miner immediately. And with Tornado being off the board, you want to make sure your card's going to get there as soon as possible because you don't ever have to worry about the miner being NATO'd to King Tower. So it gives your opponent the freedom to just send it anywhere they'd like. And as you see, Kuchiku, I don't think he's sent it to the same spot once this entire game.
Rotating positions very well, and yeah, as you were saying, that Lumberjack so quick, and so it's a little bit more forgiving if you miss the pickup.
Right, but still needing to get those pickups is Faye, missing every single one so far, I believe.
And now going with the lane switch, but this Mega Knight on the left-hand side with the Inferno Dragon support, that's a lot. Has to find a way to deal with it.
Yeah, that Mega Knight's so easily kiteable by the Ice Golem. Faye really using that to his advantage. It's a great elixir trade for him.
And again, not getting the minor pickup. So now down to 1366 on the right-hand side. But we have a powered-up Hog Rider going back the opposite direction, getting 2 swings, 2 huge swings here as we move into sudden death overtime.
Yeah, really great job of Faye recognizing that rage ability from the dead Lumberjack and making sure to drop his Hog Rider, knowing it's always going to get a hit when it's raged up and there's no buildings in your opponent's hand.
So Faye playing Hog Rider, and there you go, exact same thing one more time. And even with the Mega Knight picking him up, you know, we're still seeing that Faye has done a good job of switching lanes and putting pressure on both sides.
Yep, and that Mega Knight, being the best response to that Hog Rider and knowing that he has to respond immediately does kind of put him at an elixir disadvantage.
So another swing, Faye has both towers down, but that Mega Knight leap did even things up a little bit. A minute down in sudden death.
Yeah, and Kuchiku here, you finding him having a hard time keeping up with Faye's very, very quick cycle.
Yeah, a 10 elixir cycle to get back to that Hog Rider.
Well, here's the thing about it, Rich, is that Hog Rider, the Lumberjack, and the Inferno Dragon all demand a response from Kuchiku. They demand a big response. And so even though they're super cheap, it still requires Kuchiku to play more elixir than he'd in turn like on most defenses.
That fireball a little behind the Hog Rider. That is it. We want to go back to that. That fireball just behind actually pushed the Hog Rider forward rather than backward.
Yeah, and it's all about figuring out where the card or the unit is going to be when your spell lands, and that was just a slight misplay, pushing it forward instead of to the side or backwards. And here we're looking at that great kite of the Mega Knight and the cleanup by Faye, which is giving him a great elixir advantage. Missing the miner, of course, but still having a great counter push.
Yeah, Faye missing the miner over and over again, and then, of course, we're seeing the charged up Hog getting the tower. And these two swings were big because this set up the close, which here we're going to look at.
Yep.
And there you see the fireball not pushing the Hog Rider away, pushing it in. And, you know, who knows if we would have had a chance for Kuchiku to get back in this one. But, you know, that moment definitely meant there was no chance for game number 2 or for game number 3. And here we go. Now we are going to game number 4, the all-important one. Remember, we are in a tiebreaker situation, so lowest tower will take the game.
Yeah, and we've seen so many times the player that recognizes early on that they should start to spell cycle and defend is usually the person who comes out on top. I actually saw you doing a little bit of that yesterday in your 1v1s.
Thank you very much. Game number 4 underway. Game number 4 underway, Kuchiku and Faye. And as you mentioned, Andrew, we are able to learn so much by watching these guys, and I think everyone who's been watching consistently has had a big chance to improve.
Yes, absolutely. It is a true honor and privilege to watch these guys play and also watch them adapt throughout the season to all the different changing metas, to the cards that are working their ways in and out of them, the archetypes. It's just, it's fascinating, Rich.
So Kuchiku going back to Giant once more. Faye now throwing a new wrinkle in here. Or potentially seeing maybe a Graveyard deck.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking, Rich. I'm thinking he's going to run Graveyard with the Prince here. Prince is such a great response to the tank, and then in turn creating a great counter push, but also that counter push happens so quickly because he's charged up, which you want when you're playing Graveyard. And the card played in defense, we got guards over there behind the icon.
So guards, a good response to Graveyard. Now, Andrew, there wasn't really anything to tank or support that Graveyard push. Was that a little bit early, you think?
Yeah, I think it was slightly overzealous. I mean, Kuchiku probably recognized that he was playing Graveyard immediately, and then Faye, I could see that he wanted his Prince to get across the river, but it didn't. And Kuchiku knew that, so he was able to defend very cheaply and also create a counter push.
So a reminder of the stakes here. G2 Esports took the first set. So Kuchiku needs to win here to send this thing to King of the Hill, and not just go to King of the Hill, but defend that lead on the first place position. A loss here would mean that Allegiance is just half a game out of taking over that #1 spot.
Yeah, this is such a crucial match. It's so hard to let you guys know the importance of it without just saying it over and over again, but a loss here for Team Queso changes everything in the EU standings.
You know, I might have misspoke there, Andrew. I think they'd be a full game out, but still very, very close, meaning that Allegiance would have the ability to take it away from Team Queso if they won their second matchup.
And here's the interesting thing about this matchup. Now, Kuchiku hasn't broken through yet, but he does have the luxury of every single time that Faye graveyards to know that he can play his Giant, whether it's at the back or at the river comfortably, because the opponent's win condition is out of cycle.
So this Prince does get across, but it's the E-Wiz stopping that charge, so nice pickup. And of course, you don't want the E-Wiz to take that shot from the Prince, so it's the Royal Ghost stepping in.
Yeah, and This is exactly what Kuchiku needs to do to win this game. Is he's got to keep the pressure up at the river so that Faye can never cross and get an effective graveyard down.
So that's a lot coming down, and the E-Wiz gonna get eaten up, so prevents some damage, but not that much. Down to 1384. We are in sudden death overtime, and I am very doubtful that we'll see a lowest tower situation.
Yeah, it does really seem like Kuchiku might be able to push this match into King of the Hill. However, with Graveyard in Faye's hand, anything can happen.
And that's the real nasty part about that card, Andrew. It can change things so quickly.
Yeah, and right there was a great job of dropping the Ice Golem, and Kuchiku getting really unlucky of the random number generators we talked about before, not getting the Prince to stop the charge, and that 8 through the Giant, which might be the deciding factor in this game.
So the Prince now trying to take down that Giant. Of course, Faye would be very happy if he could get that Furnace to survive long enough to support his graveyard push.
Yes. And Faye would also be very happy to take this set and give G2 that season split, because if Team Queso takes the match today, they have the season split or the season sweep over G2, and being in those top 4 spots in a tiebreaker position, Queso takes the cake.
So there we go, a little more survivability for this one. Will the Furnace last long enough to help?
And that's an interesting position. I understand him wanting to protect the Furnace, but dropping that Elixir Wizard was essentially throwing away 4 Elixir and giving Kuchiku the match. Wow! That was everything right there. You've got to learn when to sacrifice units, and he needed to let that Furnace go.
Wow, you know, I can't remember who I was seeing today, but I remember seeing one of the pros tweet, or someone in the community tweet earlier today about how frustrating it is playing 2v2 and watching your teammate drop an Electro Wizard right onto a Prince or a P.E.K.K.A. because it gets gone. So here we are seeing
right
that
here,
finish.
He drops it right on top, and all those units turn around and just pop it. And he's got basically no elixir. His only response is to drop another Furnace because he wants to do the splash damage to clean up those guards. But it's just not going to happen. Not today, my friend. Faye losing the 1v1 set for G2. Kuchiku pushing it to King of the Hill for Team Queso.
So 4 games for 1v1, back and forth. It is Kuchiku taking that. And of course now, as Andrew just said, we are going to King of the Hill. You know, G2 has to be happy to have Faye to mix things up there. But this is a pretty tough spot up against a team that's done very, very well here. To remind you, King of the Hill, each team will nominate 3 players. Each player gets 1 life, 1 chance, 1 opportunity to show up for their squad. The first team to eliminate all 3 players from the other squad will win the match, and a very important one at that at this stage in the season. They need to set new lineups, set new card bans to find out what they're thinking. Let's go inside the war rooms.
Vale, King of the Hill, chavales. Tornado, por nuestra parte, Gavera por la suya. Todo más o menos esperado, planeado. Sir, vas a empezar primero, ¿vale? Eres el que suele abrir. Has estado cerca de hacerte el tercero una vez, pero eso fue la otra vuelta. En esta ya está el tercero y punto. Aquí ya no hay excusa. Aquí esta es la vuelta de 7-0, así que nada. Canario, segundo. Ya, lo mismo te digo. En la otra vuelta sí, mucho... Gano 1 para 1, pierdo aquí de Hill. Ahora no gano 1 para 1 porque no ha jugado, así que te toca ganar aquí de Hill. Si no, baja el win ratio, así que a ganar. Faye, va a acabar cerrando tú. Te toca de nuevo poder redimirte por este 1 contra 1. Ha sido bastante desafortunado algún que otro matchup, pero no va a pasar de nuevo. Máximamente porque no va a llegar porque van a acabar uno de los dos. Así que chavales, para adelante, confiado, tranquilo. Lo hemos preparado, no hay más King of the Hill perdido. Vamos.
Ok, guys, we are already in the King of the Hill. Ya hemos llegado al King of the Hill. Sabemos que este es nuestro punto fuerte, ¿no? Sabemos que este es nuestro set. Los bans son Tornado and Mega Minion. Tornado and Mega Minion are the bans, ok? The lineup. Belkin first. Okay? The last time you played King of the Hill, you destroyed everyone. So
Playing without G.
yeah. Second is Soul King or Shockwing. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah? And third is Benny Yu.
Viñat. Viñat.
Yeah. Benny, ¿estás listo? ¿Sí? Vale. Por lo de siempre, ¿vale? O sea, estas son las torres.
No, no.
Sí, sí. Estas son las torres, ¿vale? Como no me entienden, mira, aquí tengo aparcado el Opel Corsa, ¿vale? Lo vendo a buen precio. Quien esté interesado es del 97, ¿vale? Te lo llevas por aquí y va perfecto, ¿vale?
¿Cuántos kilómetros tiene?
Nada, muy poquito,
Y no
3.000 o 4.000.
no ha hecho nada. no hay tornado.
No, no tornado.
puede
Ok.
llevar el coche.
Venga, ¿estamos listos? Venga, vamos.
Vamos, chavales.
1, 2, 3.
¡Quesos!
One missed fireball, one misplayed golem, one mistimed poison. These are the differences between greatness and mediocrity. Who will inch closer to the playoffs and who will fall further from glory? King of the Hill will decide it.
The final set about to get underway, and a very different match this time between these two teams. Of course, Queso sweeping the last time. G2, despite losing that set early on, has to feel happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Really bringing it to Team Queso, taking him all the way to the King of the Hill. We got Sheer kicking it off, Canario in the middle, and Faye closing it out. And with Team Queso, a team of the 4 of these players' overall record in King of the Hill is 8-2. They're going to bench Kuchiku, who's 2-1. We got St. Belican leading off, So King in the middle, and Benny who closing it out. The 3 of them combined have 1 loss in King of the Hill.
Tornado banned by G2, a pretty common ban, but across the way, it's the Mega Minion being banned by Team Queso.
Mega Minion is such a cheap response to so many cards, especially something like a balloon where the Mega Minion can take it out, giving you a positive elixir trade, and it fits so well into so many decks, Rich.
So maybe trying to reduce deck pool here is Team Queso. Let's see how we lead off here in King of the Hill. So St. Belican for Team Queso, top of your screen, G2 Sheer at the bottom, and to expand on what Andrew was just saying, with Kuchiku not being in this lineup, he did just win, but the point you were making is that he has not been as successful in King of the Hill.
Yeah, and that's very, very relatively speaking, especially for Team Queso, because he's only 2-1 in King of the Hill. So, no slouch.
No slouch, of course, but look at the other guys, 2-0 for Benny Who, 1-0 for So King, and of course 3-1 for St. Belican.
Who Belican seems, after finding his King of the Hill woes in his very first appearance, has now discovered that showing up earlier in the lineup gives him this great level of confidence, and we've seen him dominate in King of the Hill moving forward.
Definitely a King of the Hill sweep for St. Belican up against... I think it was SK Gaming that he put that one down, so fantastic.
So.
But of course, you do have sweepers on the other side.
And that P.E.K.K.A. is just taking a march down the lane and, wow, right on top of that tower. St. Belican doing it again, recognizing that early Lava Hound, and in turn being like, you know what, fine, that's what you're going to do, I'm going to push to your opposite lane.
And a Fireball to support from Sheer, maybe make some room for those pups to do some damage, but still with one tower down and his other tower in significant trouble, but Belican opting to allow a lot of damage there.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't drop the Bandit in the center of the group of the Lava Pups and then still being able to probably try to get a dash off, demanding a response, probably still going to get a Valkyrie out of Sheer, but, he was okay taking a little bit of damage there.
So again, to talk about these King of the Hill records, Belican, of course, he does have the ability to sweep. He's done it in King of the Hill. Canario, the sweep artist for G2 in that second position. But of course, Sheer no slouch as well, taking out Wonka and Max Lamanas when G2 faced off against Dignitas.
Yeah, all of these guys, and then that's why these two teams are in that top 4. They have so much experience, and especially when it really comes down to it mattering the most, which is in King of the Hill.
So there's some nice work. The Fireball log taking out the E-Wiz and doing some damage, and still in a decent elixir position despite this P.E.K.K.A. coming down the board is G2's Sheer.
Yeah, going to be really interesting to see how Sheer deals with this push, and because he still has a chance to come back in the game. It's not completely out of reach, but he doesn't have enough ground responses, and as I'm saying it in the middle of my sentence, that Bandit does really seem like it's the nail in the coffin.
Yeah,
Mitch.
the Bandit in the pocket. Such a quick move. Although now take a look at this. If he can take care of this E-Wiz, keeping that balloon alive could be a lot, but no, it's the minion stopping it. So it looks like St. Belican with a second Bandit in the pocket will do it here in the first game of King of the Hill.
Making very quick work of G2's Sheer. You can see the frustration on his face, knowing that very initial P.E.K.K.A. coming through and taking his right side Princess Tower put him at a horrible disadvantage for the rest of the match. You and I talked about this very early on today, Rich, that cascading effect very much in play in this game.
So here's that start. On the left-hand side, it's the Lava Hound, and not much to deal with this on the right-hand side, and you get 4 swings there, the P.E.K.K.A. taking it all the way down. And then here we go, the finish. And as he's trying to get the balloon to the tower, it doesn't work. Not much there to do for Sheer, trying to support the fireball, and nice opening to finish things off. Making it official is St. Belican. No need for second tower, but why not take that one too?
Yeah, St. Belican just doing some work. For Sheer, I really got to wonder why he played his Inferno Dragon so high up. You'd got to think St. Belican has got to have something to support that P.E.K.K.A dropping it at the river. Maybe a small misplay and maybe an oversight, but that's no problem. G2 has Canario coming up next.
Canario, of course, 5-3 overall in King of the Hill. He's shown up in some big moments. Will he do it again right here? So while St. Belican now with a better King of the Hill win rate necessarily, not the same head-to-head experience here at CRL, Canario at 16-6 in head-to-head games.
Yes, the methodical Canario for G2, a guy that really lets the game unwrap and develop before he goes in for the kill. Now, it doesn't mean he necessarily takes advantage of a mistake from his opponents and capitalizes it. Obviously, he does do that as well, but he really more so feels out the game until double overtime, or until double elixir, and then puts the knife to the throat.
And that's an interesting note to talk about the different gaming style personalities of the big players for these teams. Canario, very methodical. Then you have IMJP for Dignitas, who's a burst player who takes a moment and takes advantage of it really big. You have St. Belican, who obviously has been really great in when he gets put in these first opening positions, just making good choices the entire way through. So, you know, it's fun to see the different play styles and how they relate to their personalities develop here at CRL.
Yeah, and that's something that you can't really strategize for in the preseason, Rich. You got to wait until you're on the floor at the podiums and recognizing where your players succeed and where they struggle a little bit. And we've seen now Belican, when he's placed early on in King of the Hill and in that 2v2 set, he is a force to be dealt with.
Halfway through regulation time and a slight lead for Belican, but not a whole lot. And he does get 2 swings, so that's pretty important here. And it looks like he will have something good to pick up that Royal Ghost as it comes across, I believe. Yeah, there we go, to stopping it from getting too much damage on tower. I bet he'll take 1 swing here.
Yeah, and you know, Belican here has got to be somewhat frustrated, but also somewhat happy seeing that Mega Knight. Now, knowing that Mega Knight is going to be either dropped on his Musketeer pair or on the incoming Royal Hog. So now it's about making Canario make the mistake or making him choose to drop that Mega Knight when he doesn't really want to, and then capitalizing on it.
So the Musketeers being a pretty expensive troop does slow things down a bit when he works them in.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a big moment there, as you said, Andrew. Wow, wow enough.
I mean, that one Mega Knight now did exactly what I was talking about Belican not wanting to do. It was dropped originally on the Royal Hog's push, kited around the map, came back and took out the pair of Musketeers, getting an enormous amount of value.
So the kite almost working against his favor in that point.
Yeah, very good point.
So as I was going to say, though, when we're looking at the Mega Knight, there's not a really fast cycle for Canario to get back to the Mega Knight, where looking at Belican's deck, he can get back to Royal Hogs in just 8. So you might see a situation here, if we get into a lowest tower situation or he sees an opening, where he could cycle all the way around and beat the Mega Knight for a tower situation.
Yeah, and the way for Canario to make his Mega Knight the most impactful is to support his pushes as much as he can, getting air units behind it, getting the miner on the tower, making it so that Belican is forced to allocate his elixir on defending the Mega Knight instead of sending more Royal Hogs down the lane.
And deciding to keep the Hunter on the left-hand side is Belican, probably in response to those Mega Knight pushes.
Yes, that is obviously going to be Belican's best response, getting the kite down. Now, see, when you're kiting the Mega Knight in this situation with the Hunter on your Princess Tower, you want the Ice Golem to actually go in the same lane so that the Mega Knight doesn't jump to your Hunter and then jump to your tower.
So smart play by St. Belican. Canario looking for a way through, has the tower down to 974, so as the first minute of overtime ticks away, Canario feeling pretty good, but he does have both towers in danger.
Yeah, if I'm Canario, this is where I'm going to start to really rely on my miner to take out the last bit of that tower, and I'm going to save my Mega Knight and my poison to clean up any Royal Hogs and any Musketeer push. And this was a great job of Belican here, splitting 3 to the one side and 1 to the other, knowing that Canario was probably going to want to drop the Mega Knight in the left lane, but he would get more damage on the right then.
And look at that Royal Ghost taking 3 big swings, so down to 869. St. Belican now really changing the tune of the song we're playing.
Yeah, that was a very, very heads-up play by Belican that honestly really put him back in a position that he wasn't in 30 seconds ago.
And look at that, forcing the defensive miner. So the condition that you were pointing out, Andrew, is so important to get across the river and directly onto the tower. Not able to do here because it was needed on defense.
And that's got to feel like a very, very large win in a small battle for Belican to get that miner off of Canario's rotation on the tower, and it's like you said, using it on defense, which Canario's never going to want to do.
Now down to the final minute, the Royal Ghost taking care of the two Musketeers on the right-hand side. But now Royal Hogs getting through. We're talking about that fast cycle. Here we are taking advantage of it just a little bit.
And every time that miner's used on defense, Belican can breathe a breath of relief, excuse me, because now he's got 4 more cards that have to come around again before he has to worry about that miner.
But here's the question is, will this Kite have the same problem again?
Wow.
Will that Mega Knight, but now the tower going down.
That one miner tanking for those minions. You almost wonder how they got past Belican. Belican's still very happy with his play, realizing he made a slight misstep. He overlooked that fact that the miner was going to tank for those minions, and honestly, he did just lose that game.
You know, and I was getting kind of distracted by the same thing, looking to see, hey, how's that Mega Knight going to interact with those Musketeers? And at the same time, just sneaking the miner through to do that tanking. And here we go. So the Mega Knight's getting pulled across. Look at those Musketeers. And just nothing picking up the miner, nothing stopping the minions from getting on tower. You throw the poison on top, and that is GG's. So Canario once again showing off why he is so strong here in King of the Hill.
And when I say Belican lost that game, I know that he lost that game, but it was his game to lose. You saw that it was actually those skeletons that he dropped at the very end that distracted the minions, pulling them to the tower, and then recognizing it with the miner coming in for Canario. Just an incredible heads-up play by G2.
So just tiny interactions changing everything. Up next, though, it's a big clash in Spain. Soking stepping in for Queso. So these two players, Andrew, already have a lot of history here at CRL. The first time these squads met, it was Canario who took the 1v1 set over Soking in 3 games. But then when he tried to get the reverse sweep for his squad, he beat Kuchiku, he beat Belican, but then Soking got revenge to win and sew up the victory for his team.
Yeah, it's funny how those stories unfold throughout the games and matches, and as the season comes along, and seeing these guys in a rematch in King of the Hill seems very, very fitting.
This time, though, instead of being the closers for each of their squads, both guys taking the number 2 spot, so the pressure a little different here than it was in that situation.
Yeah, and even just the one position change from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3 or 3 to 1 has proven to be so beneficial for teams to really understand that. As we were talking about earlier, St. Belican, not a great closer. However, if he's kicking off for your team, you're in a great place.
And now the Mega Knight does get a full jump on tower, so even though the Inferno Dragon picking it up, really not doing as much as it would have liked in that situation.
And I actually like that play by Canario, knowing that the Zap was out of cycle for Soking, opting to eat that Mega Knight jump and then in turn create a stronger counter push. We might see him take the tower right now.
And look at the Fireball pushing the Inferno Dragon in rather than out, so that's a huge moment. Look at as it ramps up into phase 3. It does down to 78, but might as well call it down at this point.
Yeah, I love that play. It was exactly what I was thinking was going to happen. Was when I saw him eat that Mega Knight jump with the Zap out of cycle, it seemed that Canario recognized he would know that he was going to have a massive push coming down the lane, and you see him now switching lanes, keeping the pressure up on Soking.
Although, is he just planning to eat the damage here continuously on the right-hand tower, the miner getting through, and as that the Valkyrie goes down, that's going to be right tower here for Soking.
Yeah, not having enough elixir for that Valkyrie. That Valkyrie getting eaten up by those minions, and the Royal Ghost doing the brunt of the tanking there, really putting him in a great position. However, now we're in that same spot of an Inferno Dragon about to, ooh, and those guards make it just around the corner enough.
Just in time to pick up the Inferno Dragon, so it might get a little bit of damage here, but won't get past phase number 1. So as we are 35 seconds away from sudden death overtime, it is Soking with 1 tower down. Of course, that right tower, we're going to see that one go down in just a moment. although Canario does need to spend a little bit more elixir to get that thing all the way down than he might like.
Yeah, and Canario giving Soking a ton of spell value right there, stacking those troops on top of each other. That miner has been such a pest for Canario this entire game.
So facing off at the bridge, that stuff will all get cleaned up by the Princess Tower, I believe. 1, 2, 3, there we go, all the way out. So now we've kind of reset. It's a brand new game here. Pretty even, only a couple hit points separating these players.
Now, I liked when Canario switched lanes. I was praising him earlier for it, but now in hindsight, it seemed like that was a bit aggressive. He probably should have just kind of eased up off the gas and played defense. He would have been able to defend that Royal Ghost Miner Minions push much more effectively, and then he wouldn't be in this position.
Well, you know, looking at Canario's deck choice here, Andrew, there really are only 2 ground responses to distract that Mega Knight. So maybe he felt like he could get the advantage on the left-hand side and not worry about that tower. Although, as you're seeing now, the adjustments of Soking starting to pay off, especially with the direct damage of the Miner.
Yeah, that Miner coming in and tanking for those tiny troops. We've seen that Miner tanking for minions be a factor 2 games in a row now.
And that defensive Miner stopping the Mega Knight from getting the jump on the tower, but still, now you have that Miner on defense rather than offense, not as necessarily what you'd prefer for that card.
Yeah, and that Mega Knight with the Miner there, interesting play. I don't dislike it. He definitely got a good chunk of damage there for Team Queso, but just a little more aggressive than I'm comfortable with at this point.
So down to 972 is the left-hand tower. Of course, there is a lot of firepower on Canario's side, but it's slower, much slower than what Soking's working with.
Yeah, and Canario just not being able to pick up this Miner has got to be so frustrating for him. Now trying to mount a big push in the left lane. And that Inferno Dragon is going to lock. Oh, wow.
Last second guards, but with the minions taking them out, that Inferno Dragon still, and there it goes, gets on tower.
Do it.
And Canario saying it will not be like the last time, Soking. So goodbye, and I want to see your next teammate here in King of the Hill.
Wow, so quickly the tides turn. You see how upset Soking is, taking that initial tower damage, coming back into the game, honestly, turning into what looked like could be a game for Team Queso, and then somehow Canario does what he does, stays calm, stays cool, and you see him right here with that Inferno Dragon. Just that was the really well-played conservative offense, but this is where I think he made a misstep, is sending in that Lava Hound a bit early.
And there you go. You saw in the last replay Soking putting his hand on his face like, I can't live to take that damage. He gets one back. But right here, this is the big difference. And with 5 Elixir, you got to wonder what his defensive choices were here. Looks like he did not have anything he wanted to pick up that Inferno Dragon with. And I know a big question here, with how deep we were into that King of the Hill game, and the lead that he had was continuing to play offense, potentially maybe a little over-aggressive, knowing he could have played for a lowest tower situation.
Yeah, it's so tough to pick and choose between the two, because when you're playing against that beatdown deck, if he even gets one great push in, then he's going to take that damage lead very quickly.
So here we are, one more player for Team Queso. Can Benny be the hero and finish off the last 2 guys for G2? Benny top of your screen, Canario for G2 at the bottom. And these 2 players did not face off last time because Benny was not in the lineup for King of the Hill.
And how quickly the tides have shifted from what looked like a 2-game quick win for Belican, that small mistake, then switching out the Team Queso lineup, and now we're on Team Queso's last leg of Benihou, and they've got a healthy Canario and Faye on G2's side.
And Canario playing Mega Knight again. We've seen him play that a lot here in both 1v1 and King of the Hill. He's played the Mega Knight Royal Hogs, Mega Knight Miner Control, Mega Knight Miner Balloon. So one card used in many versatile deck styles.
Yeah, he really loves the tanking capabilities of the Mega Knight, coupled with the splash damage. Then honestly, that jump, making him get to tower so quickly, makes an opponent pick and choose. Well, if I've got a Mega Knight hopping down and I got a Balloon coming down the lane, which one do I deal with and how and in which order?
Benihou so far showing the Ram Magic Archer. He has run P.E.K.K.A. Ram Magic Archer before, taking a loss in his only 1v1 appearance. So you know, if we're talking about how important analysts are here, you got to wonder if G2 maybe put him on this deck and is prepared to face it.
Good use of the miner there, having to come in and clean up that Royal Ghost. However, that Magic Archer coupled with the Lumberjack is a lot coming down the lane, and Canario doesn't have a ton of Elixir.
And that's going to be a lot of damage on tower.
Yeah.
The well played from Canario. He knows that he overcommitted, and that tower looks like he's just going to let it go potentially.
Yeah, surprising on the overcommitment by Canario, considering that push started off pretty well with him countering that Battle Ram with his Mega Knight, but Benny, using that Inferno Dragon and the Magic Archer, really, really great job. And sending in that Lumberjack at the very end, Canario was just out of options, out of responses.
So not sure if Benny is running that P.E.K.K.A. Ram Magic Archer deck. You know, it wouldn't be surprising if P.E.K.K.A. was the last card. Of course, currently no big spell, and when you're looking at lowest tower potential situation, big spell is so important.
And here's that deck we were talking about, but Canario loves is that Mega Knight coupled with the Balloon, because you can still send in that Balloon all by itself, and it's such a powerful card. Not getting a hit, though, really, really well played by Benny. Now that Inferno Dragon gets a lock.
And there we are seeing it's the Fireball as the last card for Benny. So this is, you know, it looks like we're probably not going to get the lowest tower with that right-hand one down to 372. But Benny making the choice to make sure he has big spell and small spell in hand. Very smart deck building for King of the Hill.
Yeah, and now Canario recognizing that he doesn't need to save his Mega Knight for anything too specific, because there are a lot of... Wow.
Okay, 4 seconds left. Did Canario just steal this thing? Benny does not have the things in his hand, and that is it. Canario sneaks the Balloon through. The defense does not pick it up, and just when it looked like Benny might have had his number, Canario getting the full suite, 1, 2, 3 down, and continuing to show why he believes, why he might be the #1 player in the country of Spain.
Canario, once again, doing it all, carrying G2 on his shoulders, and that was such a heads-up play. What I was in the process of saying while Canario was in the process of winning was that he was recognizing that his Mega Knight demanded a huge response, and he didn't need to save it for things like Three Musketeers or Royal Hog, so he drops it at the river and creates a big push. Then Benny, responds to the Mega Knight. He's got nothing left for the Balloon.
And let's take a look at that replay here. So this is early on, the first tower going down, Canario knowing that he didn't have anything to deal with this, the Magic Archer. Now this is big though, because I said Canario might be letting this thing go. It's that Goblin Gang play that saves the tower and probably saved the game.
And you see this Balloon sneaking past that Inferno Dragon with the Zap, having about 2 hits left in all of its existence. The miner taking just enough, and Canario is elated, as is all of G2. And now Team Liquid, coming off of a 2-loss streak, makes that top 3 spots that much more intimate, Rich.
Wow, unbelievable shift. Big win for Canario, big win for G2. Now in the hunt, not just for the top 2, potentially in the hunt for the top #1 spot here in the European region. And once again, it's Canario continuing to show up big in the big moments, and he is, of course, standing by with Christy St. John.
Thanks, guys. Canario, I gotta admit, I thought you were gonna lose that last game. Tell me what happened.
Pensaba que ibas a perder esta última partida. ¿Qué pasó al final?
Pues bueno, yo intenté defenderla como podía, se había quedado a 350 y dije, bueno, no está hechizo. Y tenía un matchup bastante complicado porque el globo me lo podía parar de una manera bastante fácil. Yo no tenía para matar ni los dragones infernales ni el arquero. Entonces dije, voy a hacer lo que sea para desciclarle el zap e intentar que el dragón infernal vaya con el mega caballero y ponerle un globo detrás. Al final llegó con un hilo de vida tirando un zap in extremis y yo, bueno, la emoción, madre mía.
So basically, I tried to defend with everything that right tower, and it was in 350. So that's not in cycle in spell range. So I couldn't kill it with anything, the Magic Archer or the Infernal Dragon. So I had to try to decycle him and try to get the balloon through. And at the end, I managed to do that. And yeah, emotion.
Thanks, man. Great game. Oh, la emoción. Sí. Thank you. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Christy. So a big-time win here, not just for Canario, but for G2 overall. because while there's no movement in the standings, this puts them in the hunt not just for second, but also for first place.
Yes, Canario carrying his shoulder, or his team on his shoulders, 5-3 now, tied for second place, and now only 1 game away from Team Queso, who's at 6-2, coming off of 2 losses. I can't tell if he just woke up from a nap or if he just swept King of the Hill. He is so calm and so collected. You see why he is one of the best in the entire league.
And this is an important one for the playoff picture, because remember, it's not just making to those top 4 spots. The number 3 and 4 spots each have to win 3 matches to make their way to the World Finals. The second place team only has to win 2 matches, and the first place team only has 1. So now, especially with how tight it is at those top 3 spaces, things getting very, very critical for all these squads. And of course, you can follow all that action by hitting the subscribe button on the Clash Royale Esports YouTube page, as Andrew just made note of for you. Don't forget to ring that bell to get all your notifications. Go to esports.clashroyale.com to follow those close standings, look at the teams and their players. And of course, there is the Esports tab in your Clash Royale app. Check it out when you have a chance. We will be back this Wednesday, tomorrow, September 26th, here for more European action for Andrew Guy. I'm Rich Slayton. We'll see you right back here mañana in the arena.
Bye.
My. I am impressed by these guys. The precision and expert execution is truly mind-blowing. Today, we have seen pro players plant their flag in the arena floor, screaming from the tops of their king towers that they will not be defeated. Others have sadly fallen beneath the weight of expectations and leave the battleground with only the hope of returning tomorrow. We are now more than halfway through the CRL season, and there's little time left for teams to forge their path to the playoffs. At last, we can see the World Finals on the horizon. Who will prevail? To see each moment of glory, subscribe to the Clash Royale Esports channel. I mean, do it already. And remember, it doesn't take a lot of elixir to change the world. I mean, I play a 2.6 Hog Rider deck and I'm a king. Go ahead, roast me in the chat.